Chapter 121. I say, when did you become so kind? So this is what you're planning, haha, ha ha ha. Old man Sung clicked his tongue. While the profound Yin sword still has some Yin chi, use the profound phoenix ring to extract Yi Qing Ling's essence and transfer it into her body. Yi Qing Luo did as instructed. When a part of the essence returned to Yi Qing Ling's body, she slowly woke up. The intense pain in her body caused her to scream out loud. While she was crying out in pain, her vision turned and fell onto Yi Qing Luo. That pale white face instantly looked as though she had seen a ghost. You. Her voice was hoarse, and every word she uttered felt like a blade was cutting her throat. She really couldn't say anything. Yi Qing Ling's chest rose and fell, her eyes were filled with horror. She had no memory of being controlled by the evil sword, but now that she was lying on the ground, unable to move, Yi Qing Ling understood. The evil sword was defeated. She was defeated. It was a complete and utter defeat. How could it be? How could it be? How could Yi Qing Luo deal with the profound Yin sword? Didn't eldest sister say that no one in the world could defeat this dark force's weapon? Fourth sister, this young matriarch is a person who keeps her promises. I said I will leave you with your last breath, naturally I will. Yi Qing Luo smiled coldly, her half-squinted eyes were filled with a bone-chilling coldness. No need to thank this young matriarch. Thank my ass. I can't wait to tear you into pieces. Yi Qing Ling stared at Yi Qing Luo fiercely. This young matriarch has never liked to stir up trouble, but I am not afraid of trouble. Yi Qing Luo flipped the glower flame fan in her hand. A few wind blades condensed from profound chi flew directly towards Yi Qing Ling. This is what this young matriarch wants for little you. Swoosh swoosh, a few more wind blades flew straight at her. Ah, Yi Qing Luo. Slut, Yi Qing Ling's throat almost broke from the heart-wrenching scream. Until her voice became softer and softer, leaving only light breathing sounds. Yi Qing Luo sneered and looked at Old Man Guiyu. Old Man Guiyu's face had turned into a chrysanthemum, especially after seeing Yi Qing Luo's methods. He liked her even more. With a wave of his hand, he hurriedly announced, Student Yi Qing Luo challenges Yi Qing Ling. Yi Qing Luo wins. Applause could be heard from the crowd. The crowd stared at the person lying in a pool of blood on the stage and sucked in a breath of cold air. After the duel ended, the space in the arena disappeared. Everyone returned to the square. At this moment, there were already countless people outside waiting for the result. There were also countless students who had come out of the upper Xian Pagoda, and when they heard the news, they were all waiting for the results. When the first wave of people was teleported out, the originally quiet square instantly became lively. He saw Yi Qing Ling lying in a pool of blood. Her crimson dress had long been stained dry by the blood. Only then did everyone realize that the skin on her 4 limbs had actually been cut open. It was obvious that his meridians had been cut. Without tendons and meridians, one would be a cripple, a complete and utter cripple. Beside Yi Qing Ling was the evil sword that was broken into 2 pieces. And Yi Qing Luo stood indifferently at the side, looking coldly at Yi Qing Ling, expressionless. This is too ruthless, to actually cut her own sister's tendons. Isn't this deliberately to cripple the 4th miss of the Yi clan? Offend anyone but the 7th miss of the Yi clan, this method is really scary. Chapter 122. 4th Miss Yi used an item from the dark forces as a weapon in an attempt to bluff her way through. She deserved it. Those who had seen the whole situation in the competition space heard these comments and immediately defended Yi Qing Luo. 7th Miss Yi is ruthless. Why didn't you think about how 8th young Master Yi was carried out of the square? 4th Miss Yi is such a scum, she deserves to be abused. For a moment, the dead silent square began to clamor again. Yi Qing Qian's cheeks flushed with anger as she listened to the comments around her. She couldn't let the crowd suspect her of being an item from the dark forces. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Qian's eyes changed and suddenly ran towards Yi Qing Ling's direction. The expression on her face was replaced with heartache and worry. Ling, why are you so silly? How dare you ask for something from the dark forces? I really thought this was a sword lent to you by my master. You even lied to eldest sister. If I knew this was an item from the dark forces, would definitely not allow you to use it. Do you know that an evil thing is an evil thing after all? How could you be so muddle-headed? Yi Qingqian's voice was full of reproach as she wiped her tears with heartache. After the show, she was worried that Yi Qingling would expose her and hurriedly called for the 3 Spring sex people to carry Yi Qingling away. Yi Qingluo wasn't interested in listening to these people's nonsense anymore. She kept her feather fan and looked at Dmo Xian. Let's go. Just as her voice fell, the man who was leaning lazily on the soft chair instantly stood beside Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo only saw a purple fluttering in front of her. That handsome and charming face was right in front of her. Are you taking me home, Luo? The mellow voice was clear and melodious, with a hint of magnetism and laziness. Yi Qingluo's heart seemed to be scratched by something. She quickly lowered her eyes and hid the strange emotions in her heart, turned around and left. Dmo Xian chuckled and followed closely behind. One purple and one red, they walked away together. That scene was so beautiful that one couldn't take their eyes off it. There was silence in the square. It wasn't until the 2 figures left that old man Guiyu suddenly regained his senses and shouted, I haven't acknowledged my disciple yet and you left just like that. Didn't you say that I would accept you as my disciple? Old man Guiyu was very tired. In the past, many people had knelt down and begged him to take them in as disciples. Now that he finally wanted to take in a disciple, why was it so difficult? Yi Qingluo went straight to Pristine Elixir Medicine Hall and inquired about the Mu brothers before bringing her brother to the Mu family for treatment. Come, let's go to the Mu family. Yi Qingluo didn't say another word as she brought Dmo Xian towards the direction of the Mu family. Dmo Xian slowly followed behind her, his long and narrow brows gazed deeply at the woman's side profile. Her face was filled with anxiety and her thin, shapely eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Her beautiful face was covered with a layer of loneliness and coldness. It was precisely this temperament that made her seem even more elegant and aloof from the world. Dmo Xian's deep black eyes slowly narrowed. This woman. Every time he saw her, she would always amaze him. Why didn't you just kill her directly? Dmo Xian's brows rose as he asked curiously. Earlier on the stage, Yi Qingluo had the chance to kill Yi Qingling. Moreover, she was able to shirk the responsibility cleanly. However, at the last moment, she actually transferred Yi Qingling's essence back into Yi Qingling's body. She saved Yi Qingling's life. Chapter 123. Kill her? Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a sneer. Don't you feel that letting her live is worse than letting her die? Dmo Xian couldn't help but burst out laughing. Indeed, to the current Yi Qingling, living was more unbearable than death. The news of Yi Qingling using the Dark Forces item had probably spread throughout the entire 3 Spring City. It wouldn't take long for the news to spread throughout the West Continent and even the entire Nirvana realm. Her reputation was ruined, her profound jade heart broken, her meridians broken. There was no way to seek death while living in pain. This was the true meaning of living a life worse than death. Yi Qingluo's eyes narrowed. Although it was coquettish and beautiful, it was filled with a cold glint. Since she dared to hurt little you, then she must suffer 100 times the pain. She had never been a good person. It could even be said that she was a cold-hearted person. As long as it didn't involve her or threaten her existence, she wasn't interested in it at all. But, once she was implicated and the people around her were hurt, she would never be lenient. Yi Qingluo's principle was very simple. Those who bullied her, humiliated her and hurt her, she would hunt them down to the ends of the earth. Protect her, and those who loved her, protect them to the end. This was her way of survival. Yi Qingluo restrained the cold glint in her eyes and restored her calmness. Yi Qingqian, better pray that nothing happens to little you, otherwise, her ending will be worse than Yi Qingling. She turned her head and walked straight ahead. Dmo Xian's brows overflowed with a smile, extremely lazy. He gazed at Yi Qingluo's back, the glint in his eyes flickered with a meaningful luster. Sure enough, this little thing was the same type of person as him. She was vengeful, ruthless, and eccentric. Unlike ordinary women, she did not conceal her true nature. This was the woman he was looking for. The smile on Dmo Xian's lips became more and more enchanting and bewitching. Mu family. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian had just arrived at the door when the servant came forward and took the initiative to invite them into the house. A maidservant came over and led them to the pharmacy. Outside the pharmacy, a few doctors dressed in long robes walked in and out. Their brows were tightly furrowed, and they could vaguely hear Mu Zifan's voice coming from inside the room. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she swiftly pushed open the door and rushed into the room. "Seventh young mistress, you're here." Mu Zifei stood beside the bed, both hands holding a row of silver needles. "Miss." Ziling cried her eyes out as she stayed by the bedside. Her pair of red and swollen eyes looked at Yiqing Luo pitifully. "How is Xiao Yu?" Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she looked at the young man on the bed. Yi Fengyu's eyes were tightly shut as he lay on the bed. His blood-stained clothes had long since been stripped off and replaced with thick bandages. Above the bandage, there was still fresh blood seeping out. His slightly immature and handsome face was as pale as paper, without the slightest trace of blood. Yiqing Luo's throat suddenly tightened, as though something was strangling her neck. It was so uncomfortable that he couldn't breathe. Her delicate body trembled as she slowly walked to the bedside. Her pair of charming eyes were filled with tears. The reason why Xiao Yu was seriously injured and lying here was all because of her. "Seventh young mistress, don't worry, eighth young master only has some superficial wounds. He will be fine after recuperating for a period of time." Mu Zifan comforted her in a gentle voice. His hand holding the silver needles deftly inserted the silver needles into Yi Fengyu's acupuncture points. His movements were smooth and skillful. Yiqing Luo choked and softly replied with a "hmm." Her 5 fingers unconsciously curled up and clenched. Chapter 124. Don't worry, the dignified Alchemist Guild's young chief will personally treat Little Yu. Not long after, Little Yu will definitely be alive and kicking. Dmo Xian's thin lips curved slightly as he stood behind Yiqing Luo and held her tightly clenched fist. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, the light in her eyes was cold. "I was just thinking that I should have cut off her limbs and castrated her in the jar. I will do it for you." Dmo Xian lowered his head and rested it on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. His 5 fingers forcefully inserted into Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers and interlocked. The woman's petite body was tightly embraced by the man's broad chest. Yiqing Luo was not used to it, her cheeks flushed and her breathing became rapid. She struggled and Dmo Xian's arm tightened. There was a faint smile on his devilishly handsome face. This is... Mu Zifei's expression was somewhat strange. He glanced sideways at his brother and then looked at Dmo Xian, trying to guess the relationship between him and Yiqing Luo. Gorgeous purple robe, peerless style. You must be the Imperial Palace's lord, Dmo Xian. Mu Zifan withdrew his hand and looked at Dmo Xian with a gentle gaze as he nodded with a smile. However, when his gaze landed on their interlocked hands and the ring on their fingers, the light in his eyes dimmed a little. Dmo Xian's narrow eyes narrowed slightly as he declared with his arms around Yiqing Luo's slender waist and nodded indifferently. "Little Yu is indebted to young chief for his personal treatment. This lord will definitely thank you. A doctor is originally to save the world and help the people, no need for thanks." Mu Zifan laughed lightly. "What's more, 7th Miss is my friend." The two men's 4 eyes met and seemed to set off a storm. Who asked you to do it?" Yiqing Luo did not notice the undercurrent surging between the two men. She saw that the Mu brothers' line of sight were uniformly concentrated on her. Her cheeks were flushed red and hot as she lifted her feet and ruthlessly stepped on Dmo Xian's instep. Damn it! What the hell was this man trying to do? It was one thing for him to grope her in private, but in front of so many people, he even put on an intimate appearance with her. She should be the one thanking Mu Zifan. Why did he have to thank Little Yu on his behalf? And he even had to thank him heavily? Damn it! What the hell? Lord Overlord, is there something wrong with your brain? Yi Qing Luo was flustered. Fortunately, Mu Zifan didn't delve too deeply into this issue. He turned around and continued to perform acupuncture on Yi Fengyu. Mu Zifei felt the strange atmosphere in the room. He coughed dryly and changed the topic. Seventh young lady, whose limbs did you say you were going to cut off just now? Could it be that you have avenged eighth young master? Yes. At the mention of Yi Qingling, Yi Qing Luo's struggle lessened and her eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. I broke her meridians. F***ck, Mu Zifei's mouth opened wide as he looked at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief, his fingers trembling non-stop. You actually severed her meridians? She's your fourth sister, right? So? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and sneered. What I mean is, aren't you afraid, your father? Mu Zifei saw that she misunderstood his meaning and waved his hand repeatedly. Immediately he frowned worriedly. Your fourth sister in the Yi family is considered to be an upper-level cultivator. If you destroy her, I'm afraid your father will. As one of the four great families, the Mu family naturally had some understanding of the Three Springs sect. They were also very clear that Yi Tianquang was extremely disgusted with Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo destroyed a cultivator in the Yi family. How could Yi Tianquang let her off? Afraid? Since I dared to do it, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yi Qing Luo's eyes shot out a biting cold intent. Yi Tianquang would stand up for Yi Qingling? Chapter 125. Mu Zifei was completely convinced by Yi Qing Luo and wanted to prostrate himself before her. He gave a thumbs up and swallowed hard. Strong. Really strong. Who said women were inferior to men? This girl was so valiant that even he, as a man, was afraid of her. After Mu Zifan finished the acupuncture, he used profound qi to disinfect the silver needles and put them back into the acupuncture kit one by one. His movements were delicate and gentle, neither too fast nor too slow. At the same time, he spoke in a warm tone. Seventh young miss, in that case, you have already passed the Heavenly Academy's entrance examination? Yes, I have become an official student. Yi Qing Luo responded faintly, her eyes fixed on the bed. After seeing Yi Fengyu's acupuncture treatment, his face clearly had some color, and only then did he heave a sigh of relief. She patted the hands around her waist. This time round, Dmo Xian didn't insist and automatically released her. Yi Qing Luo got her freedom and immediately distanced herself from him. She quickly moved to Mu Zifan's side and stared fiercely at him. She immediately withdrew her gaze and took out 2 porcelain bottles from the profound phoenix ring and handed them to Mu Zifan. This bottle is for internal injuries and this bottle is for external injuries. You can use them together. Mu Zifan took the porcelain bottle, unscrewed the bottle and sniffed it. When the fragrance of the medicine entered his nose, his eyes suddenly lit up and he looked at Yi Qing Luo with some joy. Did you refine this? Yi Qing Luo just smiled and did not answer. But the meaning was also very obvious. Mu Zifan knew it in his heart and did not ask any more. After staying for another half an hour and confirming that her brother was indeed fine, Yi Qing Luo thanked the Mu brothers and left with Dmo Xian. It was still not suitable for him to move now. Moreover, staying in the Mu family could get the most timely care. After sending off Yi Qing Luo, Mu Zifan stared at her back. The curvature of his lips became more and more obvious. Big brother, don't look anymore, she is not yours. Mu Zifei put his arm around his big brother's shoulder. He had finally taken a fancy to a woman, but did not expect that. The Overlord had already taken the initiative. How could he fight with the Overlord over her? Seventh Miss is indeed a wonderful person. It would be good if we can get to know each other further. However, even if we aren't fated to get married, it's enough to be friends. Mu Zifan faintly smiled and restrained the tenderness hidden in the depths of his eyes. Her level of alchemy should be between an apothecary and an apothecary. Her talent in alchemy is extremely high. Giving her the alchemy union's token was the wisest decision. Suddenly, I want to try to snatch Miss Seventh from His Majesty. Mu Zifan patted him on the shoulder and shook his head with a smile. Then, he turned around and returned to the Mu family. Yiqing Luo had just stepped into the Three Springs sect's manor when Yi Changwei came up to her and blocked her way. Yi Changwei shrank his head and looked behind Yiqing Luo. When he didn't see Dmo Xian's figure, his courage grew slightly. "Seventh miss, Madam invites you." "Second wife, Madam Yuchi?" Mu Zifei was right. This Madam Yuchi was prepared to seek revenge for her own daughter. Yiqing Luo sneered as she walked past Yi Changwei and headed towards her abandoned courtyard. "Seventh young lady. Seventh young lady." Yi Changwei was anxious and hurriedly followed behind her. "Madam has an urgent matter to discuss with you. Please come with me." His voice was filled with a bit of begging. There was no trace of the arrogance and domineering from the last time. "Yo, Seventh Miss has climbed up to the Overlord and shone brilliantly in the assessment plaza. Are you so arrogant now? Have you ever put the Yi family in your eyes?" A sharp voice came from the side. Chapter 126. Madame Yuchi was dressed elegantly. Every step she took was full of momentum. "You're staying in Three Springs sect, so you're one of them. Seventh Miss, you're the future matriarch of Three Springs sect, yet you're already hooking up with a man before you're even married. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the world for your young age?" Her words came to a halt, as if she felt that these words were inappropriate for a young lass to say. However, these words were obviously meant for Yiqing Luo to hear. Madame Yuchi had been in charge for several years and was originally from an aristocratic family, so her means were naturally brilliant. In just a few words, she had easily expressed her status in Three Springs sect. It was also a hint to Yiqing Luo that if she was still staying in Three Springs sect, she would have to listen to Second Madame's arrangements. She also took the opportunity to ridicule Yiqing Luo for her lack of self-restraint, actually hooking up with the Overlord without anyone knowing. Yiqing Luo sneered. Her guess was right. Madame Yuchi had really used Dmo Xian as a pretext. Thinking of the man whom she had chased to a dark corner, Yiqing Luo's emotions were extremely complicated. If she were to bring Dmo Xian back to Three Springs sect, her unmarried daughter's reputation would definitely be ruined. As for reputation, Yiqing Luo didn't care much about it. But she didn't want Yi Fengyu to be pointed at by others because of her reputation. So on the way back to Three Springs sect, she asked Dmo Xian to leave first and contact him if there's anything, and returned alone. After a few days of exhaustion, Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with Madame Yuchi's nonsense and completely ignored her. She walked towards the direction of the abandoned courtyard without any hesitation. "Seventh Miss, do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you're admitted into the Heavenly Academy?" Madame Yuchi was so angry that her facial features were trembling, the white powder on her face was falling down. She pointed at Yiqing Luo and reprimanded her furiously. "The Overlord can protect you for a while, but it doesn't mean that he can protect you forever. In Three Springs sect, no matter how capable you are, you have to behave yourself. What future young matriarch, what first wife's daughter? As long as Yi Tian Kuang handed over the key to power to her, she would be in charge of the inner courtyard. What's more, Yiqing Luo was an abandoned pawn from the Three Springs sect right from the start." Madame Yuchi's heart ached at the thought of her youngest daughter lying on the bed covered in blood. Some time ago, Yiqing Luo had destroyed Yiqing Ling's profound jade heart. It wasn't easy to find an opportunity to take revenge on Yiqing Luo, but it was ruined by Yi Fengru. After that, if it wasn't for Yi Tian Kuang and Yiqing Qian's persuasion, Madame Yuchi wouldn't have endured till now. Now, not only was Yiqing Ling's profound jade heart destroyed, her four limbs' tendons were also cut off. This was to completely destroy Yiqing Ling. Thinking of these, Madame Yuchi stared at Yiqing Luo with a venomous and vicious gaze. "We haven't seen each other for a few days and second concubine's temper seems to have grown." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes dangerously as her chilly gaze glanced sideways at Madame Wei Qi. That gaze sent chills down Madame Yuchi's spine. Her body was so stiff that she could not move at all. "You want to force me to leave Three Springs sect?" Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows as her lips curled into a mocking arc. "If I leave, will you be willing?" After saying so much, it was just to emphasize one point: if she stayed in Three Springs sect, she would be under Madame Yuchi's control. Yiqing Luo felt that it was ridiculous. Whether she was in Three Springs sect or not, she didn't put Madame Yuchi in her eyes. Even Yi Tianquang couldn't do anything to her. What could a mere concubine do to her? Chapter 127. Madame Yuchi's face turned pale and her graceful face turned ashen. Yiqing Luo's words had poked at the sore spot in her heart. Madame Yuchi was well aware of Yiqing Ling's use of the Dark Forces item and supported it. After all, it was a rare opportunity for Yiqing Ling to pass the Heavenly Academy's entrance examination. If she couldn't pass the ability assessment, wouldn't it be a joke if she was assigned to the same class? The destruction of Yiqing Ling's profound jade heart must be kept a secret. Therefore, Madame Yuchi was bewitched and agreed to her eldest daughter's suggestion to let Yiqing Ling use the Dark Forces item. Unexpectedly, she would be exposed on the spot. This matter must have reached Yi Tianquang's ears. Because of the conflict between Yi Tianquang and the Yuchi family, Yi Tianquang's attitude towards her was much colder. Now that such a thing had happened, her position as the second madam would probably be lost. Originally, I had planned to leave Three Springs sect and stay in the academy's dormitory. But, on account of second madam urging me to stay, I will reluctantly continue to stay in the residence. Yiqing Luo looked at Madame Yuchi with contempt. Luo, is here. I wish second madam, good luck. Then, the corner of her lips curled into an evil, cold smile, and she left in a carefree manner. Madame Yuchi was trembling with anger and only managed to stand firm after being supported by a few old maids. Her heart rose and fell as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Her eyes were filled with ruthlessness and murderous intent. The current Yiqing Luo was no longer the waste from before. If she wanted to teach her a lesson, she would only be asking for humiliation. Madame Yuchi's chest was filled with anger, but she had no choice but to let Yiqing Luo leave. Just as Yiqing Luo expected. By the time Yi Tianquang returned, Madame Yuchi could barely take care of herself and had no time to find trouble with her. Yiqing Luo was happy with the peace and quiet. Alone in the abandoned courtyard, she concentrated on studying the reward for passing the first level of purgatory, the teleportation technique. Ziling brought back good news when she had comprehended the first stage of the teleportation technique. Yi Fengyu had regained consciousness and would be able to get out of bed in 3 days. Yiqing Luo suddenly realized that she had stayed in the Azure Dew bracelet for another 2 days. Ziling fetched some water for Yiqing Luo to freshen up. Yi Fengyu's awakening and the reunion with Yiqing Luo, Ziling was in a good mood and couldn't stop chattering. Just now when I went to fetch water, the maids of the courtyard all came to please me, and I even heard some interesting news. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she casually responded. The maids in the courtyard said that the patriarch expelled Yiqing Ling out of the Yi family's genealogy book and out of the Yi family. Kick him out of the Yi family? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes. Yiqing Ling's profound jade heart was completely destroyed and her 4 limbs, tendons and arteries were cut off. After being kicked out of the Yi family, would she still be able to live? Yi Tianquang was truly ruthless. He was merciless towards his abandoned children, even if they were his own daughters. The second madam was also stripped of her authority as the mistress of the house by the sect master. She asked the great ancestor to come out of seclusion and regain control of the Yi family's backyard. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as her hand, which was combing her long hair, paused. What did you say? Second madam has been, no, it's the next sentence. Ziling repeated in a daze. The patriarch invited old grand madam to come out of seclusion and regain control of the Yi family. Old grand madam. Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with resentment for no reason. She was no stranger to old grand madam. Yi Tianquang's mother. A strange old woman. Chapter 128. Ever since his mother passed away, the affairs of the inner courtyard had been handed over to Madame Yuchi to handle, and the old ancestor had also announced that she would be cultivating in seclusion. Who would have thought that the old ancestor would actually come out of seclusion? Let the old ancestor regain control of the Yi clan? Was Yi Tianquang planning to use the old ancestor to suppress her prestige? Or did she want the old ancestor to kill her as he had killed her mother 10 years ago? Miss, things are different now. The old ancestor didn't treat you well in the past because you couldn't cultivate profound qi. Although Ziling was not in the Three Springs sect before the old ancestor went into seclusion. However, after staying in the residence for nearly 10 years, he had some understanding of the various matters. He had also heard of the legends of the old ancestor. What the old ancestor hates the most are ordinary people who can't cultivate profound qi. As the future young mistress of the young sect master, you couldn't cultivate profound qi in the past, so the old ancestor naturally doesn't treat you as well as the other young mistresses. The old ancestor will definitely like the current young lady very much. Yi Qing Luo gave a light laugh as her eyes squinted, revealing some profound mysteriousness. I like it, that might not be the case. Yi Tianquang also used profound rank and ability to determine the status of the younger generation of the Yi family. Now that she was famous in Three Springs City, with Yi Tianquang's temperament, he should be worshipping her like a bodhisattva. But Yi Tianquang's disgust towards her deepened. This old ancestor, he was afraid that they had come with ill intentions. All right, we'll deal with it when the time comes. Yi Qing Luo placed the comb on the table, got up and smiled. Let's go to the Mu family. Ziling fetched a red muslin coat and draped it over Yi Qing Luo. The master and servant left the abandoned courtyard one after another. Yi Qing Luo had shone brightly at the assessment plaza and had a close relationship with the overlord. The attendants in the mansion were also people of great power. When they saw Yi Qing Luo, all of them respectfully greeted her as Seventh Miss and Young Matriarch. Over the past few days, countless officials and dignitaries had come to visit. But no one was able to see Yi Qing Luo. The followers thought that Yi Qing Luo had long left the Three Springs sect. After Yi Qing Luo left the residence, the attendants started to discuss. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon, the news reached the main courtyard. In the main hall of the main courtyard, the incense of sandalwood wafted in spirals, and the sound of the wooden fish being struck was orderly and rhythmic, causing one to be unable to help but feel calm upon hearing it. In the main seat of the main hall sat a woman in a dark luxurious robe. Her face was covered in wrinkles and her appearance was terrifying. Her slender eyes narrowed. Like a soft snake, they were filled with a cold glint. Her whole body was clearly emitting a strong bloody yin qi, but she was fiddling with a string of Buddhist beads, one after another. The scene was extremely discordant. She was precisely Yi Tianquang's mother, the ancestor of the Yi clan. Old Seven has come out from the abandoned courtyard? The old ancestor's hoarse voice was sharp and ear-piercing. Beside the old ancestor stood a delicate and lovely woman. Her hands were placed on the shoulders of the old ancestor, squeezing with appropriate strength. A gentle smile hung on her face. I heard from the followers outside that Seventh Sister has finally appeared. Get someone to call her over. I want to see, after not seeing her for 10 years, can old Seven still overturn the heavens? The old ancestor's originally slender eyes narrowed into a slit at this moment. Qian, we'll go call her now. Yi Qing Qian bowed softly and obediently. When she raised her eyes again, the old ancestor nodded lightly. Yi Qing Qian's face revealed a smug sneer. She said that she would leave first and then left the main courtyard. In the bottom of her heart, the complacent mood spread uncontrollably. She couldn't kill Yi Qing Luo. But old ancestor absolutely could. Chapter 129. Yi Qing Luo and Ziling had already arrived at the Mu family. Ziling led the way in front. Along the way, Zhang Xian heard many maids and attendants whispering to each other. Is that the 7th Miss of the Yi family? The young master who is personally taken care of by the eldest young master is her brother? The eldest young master treats the 8th young master very well. In order to take care of him, he even declined the invitation from the Alchemist Guild. Is it because of the 7th Miss? Maybe, the eldest young master likes the 8th young master? Don't forget to take care of her. Although the eldest young master is very attentive to his patients, I have never seen him so attentive to a patient. There must be something wrong. The group of maids discussed and speculated more boldly. However, it was enough to show that Mu Zifan's reputation in the Mu family and the degree of support from his followers were extremely high. These days, eldest young Master Mu has been taking care of little you? Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and asked Ziling. Ziling nodded. Yes, Ling also tried to persuade the eldest young master, but he was worried and has been taking care of the 8th young master in the pharmacy these days. Ziling didn't cultivate profound qi, so her ears weren't as sensitive as Yiqing Luo's. Naturally, she didn't hear the other maids' discussion. She was very puzzled. How did the miss know that eldest young Master Mu was taking care of the 8th young master? Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed slightly, the cold lines on her face softened a bit. In the pharmacy. Mu Zifan saw Yiqing Luo, the corners of his mouth curved warmly. 7th Mississippi, if eldest young Master Mu regards me as a friend, you can call me Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo walked to the bedside and saw her brother smiling at her. She stroked Yifeng Yu's head. Although his complexion was still a bit pale, it was clear that his spirit was much better. Her worried heart finally calmed down. Mu Zifan didn't argue. Then Qing Luo can call me Zifan. Yiqing Luo smiled. My brother's life was saved by the Mu family. If there is anything I can help with in the future, don't hesitate to look for me. I won't be polite. Mu Zifan gently raised his eyebrows. You two haven't seen each other for a few days, have a good chat. I'll go decoct the medicine for him. Yiqing Luo thanked him. Ziling also helped Mu Zifan brew the medicine. Sister, have you been admitted to the Heavenly Academy? Yifeng Yu's eyes lit up as he looked at Yiqing Luo excitedly. After he woke up, Ziling roughly told him what happened after he fell into a coma. When he found out that his sister had become an official student of the academy, he was incomparably happy. He was even happier than when he himself had passed the entrance examination. Yiqing Luo sat on the bedside and held his hand. Don't feel depressed. Yiqing Ling had used the Dark Force's weapon to defeat you. This has already violated the Academy's rules. After you recover, we can go through another assessment. I really can. Yifeng Yu happily propped himself up, but just as he moved, he felt a tightness in his chest, causing him to cough violently. Yiqing Luo hurriedly pressed him down. Yes, you can. Old man Guiyu has already agreed to accept you as his disciple, and those masters must allow you to retake the assessment because of Old man Guiyu. Old man Guiyu. Is that Old man Guiyu from the Heavenly Academy? Yifeng Yu's eyes widened in disbelief. After seeing Yiqing Luo nod, he was completely dumbfounded. Old man Guiyu actually agreed to accept him as his disciple? Sister would not lie to him. Chapter 130. So, if you want to enter the academy earlier, cooperate with Zifan's treatment and take good care of your body. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened when she saw the bright smile on her brother's face. After accompanying her brother for a few hours, Yiqing Luo received a message from the Yi family. It said that old Grand Madam had been looking for her for a long time. Yifeng Yu panicked when he heard that old Grand Madam had come out. Sister, why is old Grand Madam looking for you? Yiqing Luo had expected that old Grand Madam would want to see her. But she didn't expect it to be so soon. She didn't expect it to be so urgent. He even sent someone to the Mu family to look for her. It seemed that her hunch was right. Old Grand Madam would never change her attitude towards her just because she could cultivate profound qi. Seeing Yiqing Luo's worried face and anxious look of wanting to get off the bed, Yiqing Luo withdrew the deep thoughts in her eyes and smiled. I became an official student without passing the Heavenly Academy's ability assessment. Of course old Grand Madam wants to see me. Yiqing Luo touched his head. You stay in the Mu family and take care of your body. I will go see old Grand Madam and tell her about you. Sister, I will accompany you. Be obedient. Yiqing Luo left Ziling in the Mu family and left alone. Before leaving, Mu Zifan sent her out. He was holding a palm-sized brocade bag in his hand. Here are 200 gold coins, take it first. Mu Zifan handed over the brocade bag. The Heavenly Academy has a rule that new students must pay 200 gold coins as registration fee. Yiqing Luo stared at the brocade bag in front of her, her eyebrows overflowed with warmth. Mu Zifan's action was completely out of consideration for her. She had been bullied in the Yi family for the past 15 years. 200 gold coins was impossible to come up with. Yi Tianquang would never pay these 200 gold coins for her. Mu Zifan also considered this point. He was worried that when she entered the academy, she would be ridiculed by others because she couldn't pay the registration fee. Don't misunderstand me, this is a loan, you can return it to me in the future. Mu Zifan realized that his behavior was a bit abrupt, his handsome cheeks blushed. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing and was just about to reject his kind intentions. Suddenly, a whirlwind blew from the side. That wind was blowing in an extremely strange manner, as it landed on Yiqing Luo's face. Her hair was fixed with only a wooden hairpin. As the wind blew, the wooden hairpin fell to the ground. Her fine black hair scattered over her shoulders and danced in the wind. Yiqing Luo raised her hand to stroke her messy hair. As her gaze looked towards the direction where the whirlwind was blowing from, her brows creased slightly. Qing Luo, are you all right? Mu Zifan didn't notice anything strange. He picked up the wooden hairpin and handed it over along with the brocade bag. Yiqing Luo withdrew her gaze and took the wooden hairpin. Brother Zifan, I appreciate your kindness, but I still have 200 gold coins. Following that, Yiqing Luo expressed her thanks and left. They walked all the way to a dark and secluded alley before Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks, as she snorted coldly with an expressionless face, "Come out." The quiet alley was dead silent. Yiqing Luo creased her brows and was just about to open her mouth to force the person in the dark to reveal himself. Her waist was suddenly encircled by an arm. The man's fresh and elegant sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose and wrapped around Yiqing Luo. "You've been following me?" Yiqing Luo's expression was cold. She didn't even turn her head and knew who was behind her. Chapter 131. Luo insisted on hiding me, turning me into a shady man. I could only follow Luo secretly. Dmo Xian pretended to be aggrieved as his voice was still mellow and pleasant to listen to. He rubbed his head against Yiqing Luo's neck. The soft strands of hair glided over Yiqing Luo's skin. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and she reached out to pat him. Just as she raised her hand, it was held by the man's slender fingers. With a burst of strength, Yiqing Luo was turned around and buried into Dmo Xian's arms. The man's purple robe completely wrapped around her. The fragrance of sandalwood on his body was getting stronger and stronger. Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo struggled to raise her head, trying to leave his embrace. "Can you not be so touchy every time we meet?" "Oh." Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows, narrowed his peach blossom eyes and nodded seriously. "Luo, are you blaming me for not moving my mouth?" Saying that, his 5 fingers had already locked onto Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. The man's body was as hard as iron. She struggled for a long time, but was unable to move. In the next second, Dmo Xian's peerless face was enlarged in her pupils. He bent down and kissed her lips. "Oh." Yiqing Luo's eyes were cold and severe as she stared fiercely at the man and pushed him away with both hands. But, from this angle, when she met that pair of bewitching black eyes, Yiqing Luo actually went into a daze for a moment. His eyes shone with a bright light. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled from time to time. He kissed her very seriously, which could be seen from the look in his eyes. Until Dmo Xian's lips left hers, Yiqing Luo was still in a trance. Her face was flushed red, and her breathing was uneven. "Emperor. Ink. Xian." Yiqing Luo's charming eyes widened as balls of burning fury scuttled up. She gritted her teeth, wishing she could strangle Dmo Xian to death. Stinking man. He had taken advantage of her over and over again. She was actually unable to resist at all. How could a dignified overlord behave like a shameless scoundrel? Dmo Xian, you. Before she could finish her angry words, the man's fingers brushed past her hair. A cold sensation touched his scalp. It was as if something had been inserted into it. Yiqing Luo wanted to pull out the thing from her hair, but Dmo Xian held her hand tightly, not allowing her to move. I don't want this. Dmo Xian's other hand opened up his palm. In his palm was Yiqing Luo's wooden hairpin. When did it fall into his hands? Yiqing Luo was shocked. Was it because this man was too powerful, or had her vigilance lowered? She actually allowed Dmo Xian to easily take away the thing from her. You are not allowed to use anything that has been touched by another man. A low and overbearing voice spat out from Dmo Xian's thin lips. As he spoke, he clenched his fists. The wooden hairpin was broken into two halves. You. Yiqing Luo stared at that half of the wooden hairpin. Somewhere in her heart, there was a strange feeling that kept filling up. It seemed like it was going to rush to his mind. However, she could not tell what kind of feeling it was. After some time, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly as her voice reverted back to its original chilly tone. Dmo Xian. No matter what you need from me, or what motive you have for getting close to me, these. Even if you don't say it, I won't ask. After all, with your ability, it's a piece of cake to take my life. For suspecting your motive, I solemnly apologize to you. Chapter 132. Yes, that's all. She and Dmo Xian were just using each other. Dmo Xian's actions and words were just too ambiguous. Even the insensitive her could feel that Dmo Xian was flirting with her. Yiqing Luo didn't want to play the game of feelings and couldn't afford to. Dmo Xian's might belonged to him alone. She didn't need anyone's help and didn't need anyone to rely on. She wouldn't put her heart on a man who couldn't be controlled. Dmo Xian's brows rose slightly, his long and narrow peach blossom eyes squinted. Gazing at Yiqing Luo's serious and cold face, his heart was filled with a doting feeling. He didn't know when this little fellow was able to stir his heart. On the contrary, it became a problem for him to open this little fellow's heart. For the first time in his life, Dmo Xian felt frustrated. Yiqing Luo saw that Dmo Xian didn't respond to her for a long time and frowned slightly, feeling a burst of annoyance. She shook off his hand and turned around to leave. She hadn't taken a step when the man's arm wrapped around her waist again. The only woman I've ever gotten close to is you. A deep and magnetic voice rang in her ears. His thin lips spat out a warm breath, hitting her earlobe bit by bit. You're the only woman I want to touch and kiss. His words had just ended when a cool breeze brought that intoxicating sandalwood scent. Yiqing Luo couldn't open her eyes. She turned her head to avoid this wind, and when she turned her eyes again, Dmo Xian's figure had disappeared in front of her. Yiqing Luo's brows knitted tightly as her vision kept looking around the alley. But only the sandalwood scent in the air confirmed his existence. Dmo Xian's two sentences kept reverberating in her ears. Her heart was beating like a drum. Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned slightly red. She raised her hand and pressed her slender fingers on her chest, as if trying to stop her wildly beating heart. Just at this moment, the dark alley was suddenly filled with a red light. Yiqing Luo's expression changed as she caught a glimpse of a fire leaping about, as she looked towards the direction of the fire vigilantly. A snow-white nine-tailed fox stepped on the flames and came over. His 9 tails swayed in the wind, looking majestic. Behind Nine-tailed Fox was dragging a luxurious carriage. The Nine-tailed Fox strode gracefully, seemingly walking slowly, but in the blink of an eye, she had already arrived in front of Yiqing Luo. There was no one in the carriage. Only Nine-tailed Fox stood quietly in front of her, staring at her with a pair of strange black eyes. Yiqing Luo knew this Nine-tailed Fox. Wasn't this the same sacred beast Nine-tailed Fox that Dmo Xian had used to make a grand entrance during the ability assessment? You want me to go up? Yi Qing Luo and the nine-tailed fox looked at each other and pointed to the carriage. The nine-tailed fox nodded and rubbed its sharp beak against her body. It pushed her to the edge of the carriage. When Yi Qing Luo's body neared the carriage, those 9 tails had already wrapped her up and dragged her onto the carriage. The nine-tailed fox's 4 limbs moved, and a fiery light flickered as she soared into the sky with the carriage. Yi Qing Luo sat in the carriage and the expression on her face could no longer maintain the usual indifference. Her heart was deeply shaken. That indescribable feeling flowed in her heart. Faintly, it seemed like she was about to grasp something. Dmo Xian's peerless face kept appearing in her mind. He was actually so considerate for her. Chapter 133. 3 Springs Sect, Inner Courtyard. Yi Qing Qian knelt on the ground, her gentle eyes were glistening with tears. Old Grandmadam, please calm down, 7th sister must be too worried about 8th brother, that's why she ignored old Grandmadam. She seemed to be helping Yi Qing Luo out of trouble, but in her words, she was accusing Yi Qing Luo of disrespecting her elders. Old Grandmadam's face darkened, her hand that was fiddling with the Buddha beads also stopped. Yi Qing Qian lowered her eyes, her long hair covered the smugness and coldness in her eyes. She softened her voice and said, Qian has sent someone to the Mu residence to call 7th sister back. Listening to Yi Qing Qian's gentle words, old Grandmadam's cold face softened a little. Yi Qing Qian was the biggest hope of the Yi family. If it wasn't for her son, how could she let Yi Qing Luo be the successor of 3 Springs Sect? How could she tolerate such a waste who had been the first daughter of the Yi family for so many years? Just out of seclusion, old Grandmadam heard that Yi Qing Ling was ruined by that little slut and was now driven out of the Yi family. After all, she was her granddaughter, and a granddaughter with good talent. Old Grandmadam's heart was somewhat reluctant. Even her disgust for Yi Qing Luo increased. That little slut, did she really think that she could be lawless just because she could cultivate profound qi? The old ancestor's long and sinister eyes reflected a cold light. She waved to Yi Qing Qian, all right, it's not your fault, why are you kneeling there, come to grandma. Yi Qing Qian pursed her red lips and looked gentle, Qian, just don't want old Grandmadam to be angry. Ha ha ha. Qian, is still as kind as ever. Suddenly, a clear laughter came from outside the door. She saw Ling Fenghua, dressed in a dragon costume, with his hands behind his back, walking slowly. Beside him, there was Yi Tian Kuang with a smiling face. Your Highness. Yi Qing Qian saw Ling Fenghua, her face flushed. She immediately straightened up and wanted to greet him. But suddenly remembered that old Grandmadam was still at the side. She immediately stamped her feet shyly and walked over to old Grandmadam. The woman's shy behavior made Ling Fenghua couldn't help but laugh out loud. The elder ancestor's usually expressionless face also revealed a hint of a smile. Your Royal Highness, I haven't seen you for many years. I've missed you. The elder ancestor squinted his eyes and sized up Ling Fenghua. Ling Fenghua chuckled, my father often talks about the heroic deeds of elder ancestor. If elder ancestor is free, please come to the palace and reminisce with my father. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Ling Fenghua directly stated his purpose of coming. The 7th miss of the Yi clan is famous in the 3 Springs sect, but she is also the future crown princess that my father personally ordered. Now that she is with the overlord, my reputation has been tarnished. He let out a heavy sigh, his face filled with disappointment. The smile on the old ancestor's face was a little stiff. Your Highness, you mean, now that the elder ancestor has come out of seclusion, I think that this engagement. A hint of greed flashed in Ling Fenghua's eyes. Towards Yi Qing Luo, he was determined to get her. Especially the current Yi Qing Luo, he really couldn't help but want to tame her. He wanted to see her humbly, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Yi Qing Qian, who had followed Ling Fenghua for many years, was an exquisite person. How could she not perceive his thoughts? Upon hearing his words, Yi Qing Qian understood that this time Ling Fenghua came, not for her, but to borrow the power of the old Grandmadam to force Yi Qing Luo to marry him. Yi Qing Qian's face immediately turned pale. Chapter 134. Dizun. Everyone's expression changed as they exchanged glances. Yi Tianquang's but hadn't even warmed up when he immediately got up in a flurry and grabbed the manservant's collar. What did you say? Dizun. Yes, I'm absolutely not mistaken. That's the Overlord's sacred beast, the nine-tailed fox. The servant nodded with absolute certainty. Dmo Xian was the only one in the world who owned a white nine-tailed fox. Overlord. Old Grandmadam mumbled softly as she seemed to have thought of something as she turned her head to look at Yi Qingqian. Seemed to have mentioned that the Overlord is Seventh's master? Yi Qingqian was still in a daze. The young lady's delicate face was flushed red. When he suddenly heard the old ancestor's question, he came back to his senses and gave a soft "N." That little bitch. Yi Tianquang's expression immediately changed. Could it be that it was that little bitch who instigated Dizun? Father, I don't think it's possible. Yi Qingqian didn't even think and interrupted Yi Tianquang's words. The Overlord is high and mighty. He is the #1 person in the Nirvana realm. Why would he go to war for Seventh Sister? When Yi Tianquang heard this, he felt that what Yi Tianquang said was very reasonable. How could His Excellency Dizun come looking for trouble with Three Springs sect for a little slut? Offending one of the 4 great sects was equivalent to offending all 4 great sections. After all, the 4 great sects were the guardians of the god race. Even the Overlord had to consider the balance of the Nirvana realm. Thinking of this, Yi Tianquang heaved a sigh of relief. Let's go out and welcome His Majesty first and find out the purpose of His Majesty's visit. Finished speaking, Yi Tianquang quickly walked out of the hall. Yi Qingqian supported old Grandmadam as she followed closely behind. There was only one person left in the hall. The manservant knelt on the ground and looked at the man carefully. Your Highness, you want to go over. Before he could finish, Ling Fenghua kicked him in the chest and sent him flying. Ling Fenghua's eyes were filled with anger. He clenched his fists and suppressed his anger as he left the hall. Dizun. It was the Overlord again. He was the dignified crown prince, yet he was ignored to this extent. On what basis could Dmo Xian be revered by the masses? He was the crown prince, the future monarch of the West Continent. The injustice in his heart made Ling Fenghua walk even faster. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the Three Springs sect. Not far from the mansion gate, a huge white nine-tailed fox stood there proudly. Its 4 limbs were burning with sparks, gleaming with a dazzling brilliance. 9 fluffy and furry tails swayed continuously. Behind Nine-Tailed Fox was dragging a luxurious and exquisite carriage. Yi Qingqian had seen this nine-tailed fox during the ability assessment. At this moment, he blurted out, "That's the Overlord's sacred beast. It's really the Overlord is here." The people of the Yi clan immediately knelt down. "Lord Overlord, you have come to my humble abode. Yi Tianquang, the leader of the Three Springs sect, is late to welcome you. Please forgive me, Lord Overlord." Even the old ancestor, who had been in a high position for a long time, knelt down at this moment. There was no movement in the carriage. However, the people from the Yi clan did not dare to make a move. He could only kneel on the ground and wait for the Overlord's response. After about half a stick of incense, old Grandmadam's face faintly showed anger. She was used to being in a high position for a long time. Even the monarch of the West Continent had to give her some face when he saw her. For decades, she had never knelt to anyone. At this time, she was forced to kneel on the ground for such a long time by an Overlord. She was naturally unhappy. Chapter 135. Your Highness. Yi Tianquang lowered his voice and carefully looked up at the carriage, then glanced at Ling Fenghua. This look was clearly asking him to kneel down. Ling Fenghua's face darkened. Although Dmo Xian's status was irreplaceable in the entire Nirvana realm. But in any case, he was still the crown prince. If it was in private, it was nothing to kneel down to Dmo Xian. But now, Ling Fenghua's heart was full of injustice, jealousy, and resentment towards Dmo Xian. How could he be willing to kneel down to Dmo Xian in front of so many people? Not only did Leng Fenghua not kneel down, but he also straightened his back, raised his chin and reached out to grab Yiqing Qian's arm. "Qian, let's go. Follow this highness to the backyard. Let this highness see if your profound grade has improved these days." These words were obviously a blatant provocation to Dmo Xian. Ha! So what if Dmo Xian was the number one in the Nirvana realm? After all, he was the palace lord of the evil palace, despised by the world. In any case, he was the future monarch of the West Continent. His status was much higher than Dmo Xian's. Especially, the Yiqing Luo that Dmo Xian fancied was a waste that he didn't want and threw away. And he got the most favored genius of the Yi family, Yiqing Qian. No matter how he looked at it, Dmo Xian couldn't be compared to him. Leng Fenghua's inexplicable sense of self-confidence once again inexplicably welled up in his heart. But Yiqing Qian, who had always been obedient to him, knelt on the ground and refused to get up. "Qian, Leng Fenghua unhappily lowered his voice. "Are you going to reject me?" Yiqing Qian's cheeks were flushed with shyness as she stared at the carriage. Her mind was full of Dmo Xian at the assessment square, that graceful and outstanding look, that immortal-like voice. Her heart's unwillingness and her overflowing self-confidence made her believe that she was the most suitable woman for Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo could seduce Dmo Xian. Naturally she could too. Yiqing Qian directly shook off Leng Fenghua's hand and said in a charming voice, "Your Highness, that is the Overlord, even your Highness cannot be rude to the Overlord." Leng Fenghua was so angry that his whole body was trembling, and his face was livid. Especially when the surrounding commoners looked at him with disdain and mockery, a ball of anger surged within him. Leng Fenghua angrily strode towards the nine-tailed fox. He pointed at the carriage and said sternly, "Overlord, since you're here, then show yourself. Are you hiding in the carriage because you don't dare to show yourself?" Before he could get close to the carriage, the nine-tailed fox's tail suddenly stretched out and swept the ground. Leng Fenghua tripped and fell to the ground, his face landing heavily on the ground. That powerful wave of air caused Leng Fenghua's heart to tremble. This nine-tailed fox was so powerful. Around them, the commoners could not help but laugh out loud. The commoners were delighted to see Leng Fenghua's wretched appearance. Leng Fenghua's face was burning like fire, as if he had been skinned and stood in front of everyone. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that everyone present was mocking him. Leng Fenghua was ashamed and resentful. He flicked his sleeve and turned around with the intention of leaving. At this time, a soft sound came from the carriage. Following that, the carriage's curtain was lifted. I just woke up from a nap, why is it so lively?" An extremely lazy voice, with a hint of enchanting hoarseness could be heard. Inside the carriage, a lady dressed in red was lazily propping her head up, reclining on the soft blanket. A head of fine black hair hung on the lady's shoulder. That lady had an exquisite face, although she was young, but she had already revealed a mature and cool enchanting charm. Especially that pair of eyes which could charm all living beings, was suffused with a coquettish charm. It could captivate one's soul. Yiqing Luo. Chapter 136. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers touched the corner of the curtain. Just as she stepped out of the carriage, the 9 tails of the 9-tailed fox had already curled up her body and sent her steadily to the ground. This action made the Yi family's mood extremely complicated. The Overlord's sacred beast actually respected Yiqing Luo so much? Could it be, the Overlord and Yiqing Luo came to Three Springs together? The group of people kneeling on the ground, their legs were already numb, but still did not dare to stand up. "Your Highness is really well educated, making noise and provocation in public. Are you afraid that the world doesn't know that your Ling family is so awesome that you want to compete with the Overlord for the world?" Yiqing Luo spread out her feather fan, covering half of her face, and gave a low laugh. Her tone was light, as if she was talking about the weather. But the meaning of that sentence made Leng Fenghua's face change. Compete with the Overlord for the world? How could he have this ability? Moreover, Yi Qing Luo clearly wanted to involve the whole royal family. 7th Miss Yi, you can't talk nonsense. I have great respect for all the capable people in the world. Leng Fenghua was so angry that the corner of his mouth twitched, but on the surface, he still had to hang a gentle smile. He took a few deep breaths and looked at Yi Qing Luo. But 7th Miss Yi, as my fiancé, you are entangled with the overlord. Is this the upbringing of 7th Miss Yi? Do I have upbringing? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly, glancing at the group of people who were kneeling on the ground. Her line of sight was fixed on old Grand Madam. I lost my mother when I was 5 years old. What upbringing can I have? Don't talk nonsense with this young lord. Immediately, she sneered. Moreover, Leng Fenghua, do you have the right to question me about my relationship with Dmo Xian? Her 5 fingers moved, closed the feather fan, and the smile on the corner of her mouth instantly turned cold. Just based on the fact that you and Yi Qing Qian had an affair behind this young matriarch's back, you had already let this young matriarch divorce you a month ago. Leng Fenghua's face darkened. 7th sister, don't talk nonsense. Yi Qing Qian glanced at the carriage in a fluster, fearing that Dmo Xian would misunderstand, and hurriedly explained, eldest sister and His Highness are innocent. You? Innocent? Do you really think we're blind? Just now, Leng Fenghua very sincerely invited you to the backyard, to test whether your profound level has improved or not. Yi Qing Luo sneered and deliberately emphasized on the word test. He raised his voice at the end, and his tone was filled with ridicule. The meaning of his words changed. Yi Qing Qian bit her pink lips tightly, unable to refute. Leng Fenghua was also secretly annoyed. How could he let his anger rise to his head and say something he shouldn't have said in the heat of the moment? The atmosphere instantly became strange. At this moment, old Grand Madam who was kneeling in front raised her head slightly, and a pair of malicious eyes stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. However, he glanced at the carriage out of the corner of his eye. 7th brother, bring Lord Dizun out. Yi Qing Luo played with her feather fan as she tilted her head and blinked innocently. Dmo Xian isn't here. Not here? Not only did the Yi clan's people's faces turn green and red, even Leng Fenghua's expression changed. The surrounding people shook their heads and sighed lightly. They didn't expect the overlord to be not here. They thought they could see the man in the rumors. But, even if they could see the overlord's only sacred beast, it was still a blessing. As a result, the people stared at the white arrogant nine-tailed fox in a daze. Yi Qing Luo, are you playing with us? Yi Qing Qian stared at the carriage shyly and immediately changed her expression. She turned hostile faster than flipping a book. Playing? How did I play with you? Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. Did I say that Dmo Xian is here? Yi Qing Qian's words were deflated and she bit her lower lip unwillingly. Yes. Yi Qing Luo didn't say it, but... Chapter 137. Old 7, what's going on? Old Grand Madam's face was gloomy as she was helped up by Yi Tianquang. After all, she was old. After kneeling for about the time it took to burn a stick of incense, her legs were already a little numb. At this time, her whole weight was supported by Yi Tianquang's body. Thinking that she had actually knelt for so long in front of so many people, old Grand Madam's face became increasingly gloomy. I want to ask you, what's going on? Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept around, pretending to be puzzled. Why are old Grand Madam and father kneeling at the door? Suddenly, she nodded in realization and scratched her head embarrassedly. Did old Grand Madam and father specially come to welcome me to celebrate my admission into the Heavenly Academy? Old Grand Madam originally stood firm, hearing Yi Qing Luo's words. She was so angry that her body suddenly trembled, her slender eyes narrowed into a slit. Welcome Yi Qing Luo? Could Yi Qing Luo afford such a grand welcome? Of course I can. Yi Qing Luo seemed to see through old Grand Madam's thoughts and smiled sweetly. Her charming eyes shone with an innocent luster, her eyebrows curved. Just now old Grand Madam has knelt for such a long time. There was no sound of thunder. Why can't I accept it? You. Old 7, In any case, you are the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, mind your words. Old Grand Madam's eyes flashed viciously, her eyes were deep and treacherous. This little slut was really different from the past. How could the previous Yi Qing Luo have such a pair of, such soul-stirring eyes? What was the reason that caused the weak and useless old seven to have such a big change for 15 years? If old Grand Madam really thinks that I am the young matriarch, when eldest sister provoked me, old Grand Madam should have spoken up to defend her. Yi Qing Luo sneered, I don't have a mother to discipline me, could it be that? Eldest sister also doesn't know how to be taught. Her voice fell abruptly, and she continued the conversation. That's true, if eldest sister had a good family education, as a daughter of a wealthy family, she wouldn't have gone behind her sister's back and fooled around with her future brother-in-law. The last sentence, although it was a soft murmur. But the surrounding people, who couldn't hear it clearly? Who could not hear it? Seeing the commoners pointing and gossiping, Yi Qing Qian bit her lower lip in embarrassment and indignation. How could she maintain her usual gentleness on her face? Yi Qing Qian was thin-skinned and only felt that the surrounding gazes made her face burn up. Her small hands gripped the wide sleeves of her robe tightly as she suppressed the surging anger in her chest. She tried her best to make her voice sound more gentle. Seventh sister, if you try your best to misunderstand me and slander me, I can only die to prove my innocence. With that, she lifted her sleeves and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Then, he crashed into the wall of the Three Springs sect residence. Qian. The old ancestor and Yi Tian Kuang cried out in alarm. Just as Yi Qing Qian's head was about to hit the wall, a burst of profound qi shot towards her. That strong airwave caused Yi Qing Qian's body to flip over. Yi Qing Qian fell heavily onto the ground. The exquisite makeup on her face had been covered by dust, and her carefully coiffed hair was scattered. Qian, I'm sorry, I wanted to save you, but I didn't control my strength in a hurry. Leng Fenghua, who was standing in the distance, immediately retracted his hand and took a few steps to Yi Qing Qian's side and held her in his arms. Seeing that Yi Qing Qian was seeking death, Leng Fenghua's reflex action was to stop her with profound qi. Chapter 138. Die to prove your sincerity? Yi Qing Luo sneered, her pink lips hooked up. Why do I feel that eldest sister is so ashamed that she wants to commit suicide to escape punishment because I exposed you in front of everyone? Yi Qing Qian, who was about to faint, was so angry that she coughed a few times. A mouthful of blood gushed up her throat. Wah, she spat it out. Leng Fenghua was hugging her, and this spurt all sprayed onto his face. Leng Fenghua only felt that his face was warm, and a bloody smell filled his nose. His whole face was covered with sticky liquid. Ha ha ha, in this way, not only are your skin intertwined, but your blood is also mixed. Yi Qing Luo burst out laughing. A scumbag and a white lotus, a perfect match. Even God thought so, and even gave them a color for this perfect match. Yi Qing Qian's breath was stuck in her throat, and her mouth was full of the taste of blood. After hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, she couldn't bear it anymore. Her delicate body twitched violently, her eyes rolled, and she completely fainted. Leng Fenghua's face was sprayed with blood, and his expression couldn't be seen clearly. However, from the aura released from his body, it was enough to show the anger in his heart at this time. If it weren't for so many people watching, if it weren't for the presence of the Yi family, Leng Fenghua really wanted to throw the woman in his arms out. Leng Fenghua took a deep breath, trying to calm his mood. But when he breathed, he inhaled a nose full of blood. He raised his sleeve impatiently and wiped his face with all his might. Your Royal Highness, thank you for saving Qian's life. Come, carry eldest miss away. How could Yi Tian Kuang not feel Leng Fenghua's anger at this time? He hurriedly called a few rough maids to carry Yi Qing Qian back to the room. Let Madame Yuqi take care of her. If Qian's body recovers, she will make up for her mistake. Old Grand Madam added. Old Grand Madam really liked Yi Qing Qian from the bottom of her heart. After all, such a well-behaved and talented junior like Yi Qing Qian, how could she not like her? Letting the maids take care of her was not as good as the care of her biological mother. Yi Qing Luo could tell from old Grand Madame's words that she pitied Yi Qing Qian. The corners of her lips twitched in a self-deprecating manner. She narrowed her enchanting eyes, which were suffused with a cold light, reflecting a profound meaning. Although she had already expected the old ancestor's attitude towards her. But in Yi Qing Luo's heart, there were still some doubts. After all, she was the legitimate daughter of the Yi family and the future young sect master. It was one thing for Yi Tianquang to hate her so much. Why, in her memory, this elder ancestor, who used to determine the status of the younger generation in the Yi clan, also hated her so much? There wasn't the slightest bit of excitement and agitation from her being able to cultivate profound qi and getting to know Dmo Xian. Old Grand Madame retracted her gaze as she watched Yi Qing Qian being carried away by the old maid. Old 7, that's enough. How can you make such a ruckus in public? That slender cold eyes which resembled a venomous snake stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. In the past, there was no one to discipline you. Now that I have come out of seclusion, you will be personally disciplined by me in the future. As soon as old Grand Madame's words fell, Yi Tianquang's face revealed a look of ecstasy. In his heart, he secretly thought, if old Grand Madame was personally disciplining her, would he be afraid that this cheap girl would not be disciplined? But these words made Yi Qing Luo's expression that seemed like a smile yet not a smile turned into a belly laugh. She laughed like a flower branch trembling. Her flirtatious red dress floated along with the trembling of her body, like a blooming gorgeous rose. I'm afraid old Grand Madame has forgotten that in a few days, I will be reporting to the Heavenly Academy. Discipline her? She hadn't been disciplined for the past 15 years. Chapter 139. Yi Qing Luo. You're usually lawless, but how dare you be so rude in front of old Grand Madame? Yi Tianquang was furious when he saw that old Grand Madame couldn't suppress Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo snorted coldly. Rude? She didn't put the Yi family in her eyes at all, okay? Yi Qing Luo was too lazy to pay attention to Yi Tianquang and turned to look at the nine-tailed fox behind her. You go back and say thank you for me. The white fox, who was originally arrogant and elegant, moved its head after hearing her voice. The sharp fox mouth rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's face. Yi Qing Luo only felt a wet and hot touch, sweeping across her skin. It actually licked her. After licking her, the nine-tailed fox leaped into the air and disappeared into the horizon with the gorgeous carriage. It was as dazzling as when it came, causing the people in the city to stop and look up at the sky. Ow meow meow, it was hard to tell if it was the cry of a cat or the low roar of some wild beast that rang in his ears. Immediately she saw a ball of fluffy object the size of a palm, climbing up Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. The fluffy tail fiercely swept across Yi Qing Luo's cheek. Chi chi. Yi Qing Luo was a little tickled and reached out to pull it. But the little guy jumped from one end of the shoulder to the other. It moved its little head and licked Yi Qing Luo's other cheek. It turned out that the little guy was jealous. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help laughing and rubbed Chi Chi's little head. Well, that's not my sacred beast, there's nothing to worry about. Ow meow meow. Chi Chi snorted, staring fiercely in the direction of the nine-tailed fox's departure. Damn fox, coquettish and domineering, was it trying to steal its master? Yi Qing Luo hugged Chi Chi, talking and laughing, leaving behind a large group of people watching the fun, and walked into the Three Springs Manor. Old Grand Madame's face was livid. Yi Tianquang's facial features were hideous. He was furious, but in front of the people, they could only calm down and return to the manor. Your Highness, are you going to the Yi family to clean up, or? The attendant stared at the blood on Leng Fenghua's face and asked tremblingly. At this moment, Leng Fenghua didn't have half of the crown prince's nobility. After the blood coagulated, his entire face seemed to have been glued. Leng Fenghua clenched his teeth and slapped his follower a few times. What Yi clan? Why bother going to the Yi clan? Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Yi Qing Luo returned to the abandoned courtyard and placed Qi on the table without sitting down. The gate of the abandoned courtyard was kicked open with a loud bang. Yi Tianquang looked at the withered branches on the ground and frowned. This was really an abandoned courtyard, so abandoned that no one could live in it. Yi Qing Luo had actually stayed in such a place for 15 years. The elder master followed closely, and when he saw the environment, his face darkened. Before Madame Yi moved in, this courtyard was not the best courtyard in the Three Springs sect, but it was definitely not bad. Who would have thought that, after more than a decade of absence, it would actually become like this? Father and old ancestor are really persistent. Didn't you see the sign hanging outside the courtyard? Yi Qing Luo lazily leaned against the wall, her arms crossed over her chest. Yi Tianquang followed Yi Qing Luo's line of sight, and sure enough, he saw a huge wooden sign outside the courtyard. On it was written in flamboyant calligraphy, "Livestock are not allowed inside." She pointed to the sign and looked at the two Yi family elders. The meaning was obvious. Chapter 140. Oh. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows. So? Yi Tianquang's eyes burst with anger when he saw her stubborn look. He turned to look at old Grandmadam. Old Grandmadam, old Seventh's behavior has brought shame to the Yi family. I think it's time to consider changing the young matriarch position of Three Springs sect. After that, he glanced at Yi Qing Luo from the corner of his eyes. In Yi Tianquang's view, the reason why Yi Qing Luo could be so arrogant was because of her identity as the first wife's daughter and her identity as the young matriarch of Three Springs sect. If she lost these backing, would Yi Qing Luo still be so arrogant? Heh, a light laugh overflowed from Yi Qing Luo's pink lips. She shook her feather fan and met Yi Tianquang's gaze with contempt. Father doesn't know what's right and wrong, old Grandmadam understands. She slowly walked towards old Grandmadam, slightly squinting her charming eyes, flowing with a rippling luster. Eldest sister knows that Ling Fenghua is the sovereign's order to be my husband, but she seduced Ling Fenghua behind his back. This action, let's not talk about whether it's against the rules. If the sovereign hears about it, I'm afraid eldest sister will have to bear the crime of deceiving the sovereign. The sovereign first set the engagement, but in order to achieve her own goal, Yi Qingqian seduced Ling Fenghua and persuaded him to marry her instead. Yi Qingqian's action was in defiance of the sovereign's order. Ling Fenghua betrayed me first, it's natural for me to divorce him. The smile on Yi Qing Luo's lips gradually deepened. Furthermore, fourth sister secretly colluded with Yuchi fourth young master to dig out my jade heart in an attempt to destroy my innocence. During the ability assessment, she even borrowed the dark forces items to seriously injure Xiaoyu. As she approached, a majestic and powerful aura spread out from her body. Yi Tianquang and old Grandmadam couldn't help but feel aghast. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine, what's wrong with that? You're allowed to plot against us, but I'm not allowed to fight back. Is this the Yi family's principle? Yi Qing Luo scoffed coldly as her lips curled up in ridicule. Don't even think of using the position of young sect master to threaten me. You want me to be the young sect master, but I might not be willing to do it. For the past 15 years, had she ever enjoyed even the slightest bit of benefit from her position as the young sect master? No. What she had experienced was the jealousy and humiliation of her siblings. There was no difference whether he had the position of young sect master or not. You, vile spawn, if I don't. Yi Tianquang was so angry that his whole body was twitching. He clenched his fist and was about to rush forward. Old Grandmadam's withered like firewood hand grabbed Yi Tianquang's wrist. Her ice-cold eyes coldly swept past Yi Qing Luo. Being stared at by those eyes was like being stared at by a poisonous snake. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers stroked her lower jaw, as her half-squinted eyes seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. After a long while, the elder ancestor withdrew his gaze and turned to leave the abandoned courtyard. Yi Tianquang followed closely behind. Vaguely, she could still hear Yi Tianquang's low roar of rage, as if he wasn't satisfied with why the elder ancestor didn't let him make a move. Originally, she thought that after Yi Tianquang had suffered here, he would definitely revoke her position as the young sect master. But Yi Qing Luo waited for 2 days and instead waited until the elder ancestor sent someone to invite her out of the abandoned courtyard and gave her the best location in Three Springs sect. After living in the new courtyard, the elder ancestor also sent more people to Yi Qing Luo. There were at least 20 people in front and behind the courtyard. Chapter 141. Old Grand Madam was indeed the old Grand Madam. Her way of thinking was indeed more mature than Yi Tianquang. Extreme measures would only make the gap between Yi Qing Luo and the Yi family widen. On the contrary, restoring Yi Qing Luo's rights as the daughter of the first wife and the young matriarch was the most important way to stabilize Yi Qing Luo. These 2 days, the attendants and maids came in and out. Only Old Grand Madam and Yi Tianquang didn't take a step inside. After a few days, Yi Fengyu was able to get out of bed and was sent back by the Mu brothers. Knowing that Yi Qing Luo wasn't wronged by Old Grand Madam, but moved to the best courtyard in the inner part of the residence, his heart was finally at ease. It seemed that Old Grand Madam indeed used profound grade and ability to determine the status of the younger generation. These days, Yi Qing Luo had been cultivating profound qi with Old Man Song in the Azure Dew bracelet, as well as the first layer of purgatory. Her profound grade had been stuck at the yellow profound 9th grade ever since the competition with Yi Qing Ling. This advancement barrier, Yi Qing Luo had tried numerous ways but ultimately she was unable to break through. Yi Qing Luo wanted to try challenging the second layer of purgatory, perhaps it could stimulate her to advance. However, Old Man Song didn't agree with her approach and forcefully stopped her. The 12 layers of purgatory, although it is a void and different from this world, but, if you are injured in there, you are really injured. If you die in there, you are really dead. Old Man Song said seriously, before you have enough strength to contend with the second layer of purgatory, I will absolutely not let you step into the second layer. After Yi Fengyu returned to Three Springs sect, he tidied up his courtyard and directly moved to the same courtyard as Yi Qing Luo. The new courtyard was extremely spacious, divided into 2 areas. Yi Fengyu was in the front courtyard and Yi Qing Luo was in the back courtyard. There was a distance between the siblings, so they wouldn't be the subject of gossip. In order to strengthen Yi Fengyu's body, Yi Qing Luo asked the Cauldron Dragon to refine a few medicinal pills for him. Time flew by and half a month had passed. All the freshman examinations in the Heavenly Academy had ended and it was the day of school. On the night before school started, the attendants helped the siblings pack their luggage. Yi Fengyu's handsome face revealed a few complicated emotions. After the meal, he left the courtyard alone. Miss, young master, is he too nervous about going to the Heavenly Academy? Ziling could tell that something was wrong with her brother and asked in a low voice. Yi Qing Luo wiped her mouth and squinted her eyes, this fellow. I'm afraid it's because of me. Sure enough, Yi Fengyu returned to the courtyard with a gloomy face half an hour later. On seeing Yi Qing Luo still sitting in the main hall, apparently waiting for him, Yi Fengyu lowered his head and sat down beside Yi Qing Luo. From time to time, he would glance at Yi Qing Luo, looking as though he wanted to say something but was hesitant. Yi Qing Luo wasn't anxious at all as she leaned lazily against the back of the chair, patiently waiting for him to speak. After a while, Yi Fengyu's thin lips moved and suddenly took out a brocade bag from his bosom. Sister, this is 200 gold coins, the registration fee to enter the Heavenly Academy, you take it. What about you? Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and glanced at the brocade bag in his hand. A trace of awkwardness flitted across Yi Fengyu's face. Of course I do. This is big sister, little you. Yi Qing Luo's cold voice indifferently interrupted his words. You know, what big sister hates the most is deception. Yi Fengyu bit his thin lips, the words just now were stuck in his throat and couldn't come out. Chapter 142. Yi Qing Luo heard this, her pink lips slightly hooked up and looked up with a faint smile. Don't give, I don't need it. But. Sister, the registration fee for the Heavenly Academy is 200 gold coins. Yi Fengyu's face was full of guilt. For Yi Fengyu, 200 gold coins was a shocking amount of wealth. For the past 15 years, although his life was better than Yi Qingluo, but his monthly salary was at most 10 silver coins. These years, Yi Fengyu had hoarded a lot of money, but some time ago, Yi Qingluo spent it all on medicinal herbs. Now he was penniless. Only the 200 gold coins registration fee that old Grand Madam gave him. But, what about his sister's registration fee? Seeing that he had to go to the academy tomorrow, old Grand Madam had no intention to take out her registration fee. Just now, he specially went to his father's courtyard to ask, but was stopped by his father. Yi Fengyu felt that the money bag in his hand was exceptionally heavy. Sister, it's all right for me to go to the academy, I can also learn from the ordinary schools, but sister. Heavenly Academy is your chance, you are the most suitable to go there. Yi Fengyu was clear about his own weight, his aptitude was absolutely not comparable to Yi Qingluo. It was better to give this opportunity to his sister, he could feel at ease. You are a man, why are you so long-winded? Yi Qingluo interrupted him impatiently, squinting at him with her charming eyes. Yi Tianquang's purpose is very simple, he just wants me to take the initiative to beg him. These days, she changed the courtyard and added more maids to take care of her. But there was no reaction on the registration fee. Obviously, old Grand Madam and Yi Tianquang wanted to take this opportunity to make her take the initiative to look for them. Once she took the initiative, she would lose her sovereignty. They would also take the opportunity to put forward some conditions to suppress her. This was a good plan. But, Yi Qingluo chuckled softly as her alluring eyes squinted slightly. You're only thinking about how to subdue me, but you've forgotten that I'm representing Three Springs sect now. The young matriarch of the Three Springs sect, after being admitted to the Heavenly Academy, could not even pay the registration fee of 200 gold coins. Were they mocking her young master for being useless, or were they mocking the Three Springs sect for being so poor that they couldn't even take out 200 gold coins? Yi Fengyu's jaw dropped in realization. Then tomorrow, who told you that I have no money? Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows and teased. Yi Fengyu's eyes widened even more. Sister has it? 200 gold coins? No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't believe it. He had a monthly salary, and even though he lived frugally, he had only managed to save 20 gold coins over the years. Yi Qingluo, these few years, Yi Tianquang had long forgotten about her in the abandoned courtyard, and Madame Yuqi had intentionally neglected and humiliated her. Not even a single copper coin was given to Yi Qingluo. These years, although Yi Fengyu looked down on Yi Qingluo, she was after all his biological sister. Every time he received his monthly salary, he would secretly buy some food and give it to Ziling to take care of Yi Qingluo. Because of this, towards Yi Qingluo's situation, he was extremely familiar with it. How could Yi Qingluo possibly have 200 gold coins? What is sister's secondary occupation? Yi Qingluo's pink lips slightly raised, leisurely chuckling, lingering in the air above the hall. Yi Fengyu replied in a daze. Medicine master, medicine master. Chapter 143. When Yi Fengyu thought of his sister's refined pills, he was deeply impressed by her character. He had never seen an alchemist like Yi Qingluo who had a 100% success rate. Moreover, the pills she refined were extremely special. They were obviously using the same formula and refining the same type of medicinal pills, but it was obvious that the medicinal pills which Yi Qingluo had refined were much more effective than ordinary medicinal pills. Alchemist was originally a money-making profession, and for an alchemist like Yi Qingluo, the gold coins flew all over the sky. Yi Fengyu's face immediately turned bitter as he threw himself to Yi Qingluo's side and started massaging her shoulders and legs. Elder sister, since you are so rich, look at my 20 gold coins. It was a secret stash of money that he had saved up for several years. Just the thought of contributing all of it was enough to make one's heart ache. Forget it. Yi Qingluo pulled the corner of her lips and said, in order to prevent you from spending money recklessly, I will keep your money for you. The next day, Yi Qingluo was woken up by Ziling early in the morning. Ziling looked around and whispered in Yi Qing Luo's ear, "Miss, those people from the Yi family are already waiting for you." Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows, a pair of lazy eyes revealed a bit of slyness. "Then let them wait." Ziling snickered a few times and slowed down the movements of her hands. She fetched water for Yi Qing Luo to take a bath and tied up her slightly complicated hair. About half an hour later, Yi Qing Luo slowly came out of the house. Yi Fengyu stood at the door with a pale face. Apparently he had been scolded by Yi Tianquang. Yi Qing Luo looked at his aggrieved face and touched his head. "Have you had breakfast?" "Sister, outside the house." "Look at your pale lips, you must have gotten up in a hurry, you haven't had breakfast yet." Yi Qing Luo's fingers slid to Yi Fengyu's face and said with a distressed face, "Ling, cook some porridge for 8th young master and add some side dishes." "Sister." Yi Fengyu anxiously pulled on her hand, "Don't be angry with father, they've already been waiting outside for an hour." Yi Qing Luo saw that his eyes were filled with nervousness and the muscles on his body were also tensed up due to nervousness. She knew that it was because he had just entered the Heavenly Academy and was filled with nervousness, so she stopped teasing him. She asked Ziling to bring 2 white steamed buns and gave one to Yi Fengyu. She picked one up and stuffed it into her mouth. Ziling carried a luggage bag on each shoulder and was about to lead the way. Yi Qing Luo swallowed the steamed bun and patted Ziling's shoulder. "Ling, the Heavenly Academy does not allow maids." In the Heavenly Academy, all the students were just students. In the words of the Wu Fuzi gang, come to the academy to learn how to improve your Xian Qi, how to effectively cultivate your Xian Qi, and how to become stronger. If you still bring attendants or maids to serve you, go home and be a young master or mistress. Ziling, who was originally excited about being able to leave the mansion, immediately dimmed. She pursed her lips. Although she was unwilling, she still obediently put down her bow. "Young miss and young master, remember to take good care of yourself." Ziling couldn't hide the disappointment on her face. Yi Qing Luo patted her shoulder gently and took over the bow. She said in a gentle voice, "Silly girl, in the 3 Springs sect, there's no one I trust except you." She rubbed Ziling's head, "Look after the courtyard for me, don't let anyone with ulterior motives come in and do anything. If anyone makes things difficult for you, just use my name and remember the names of those who bullied you. I'll come back 7 days later and punish them one by one as a warning to others." When Ziling heard that she was the most trusted person of the young miss, a smile immediately appeared on her face and nodded vigorously. "Ling, will definitely look after the courtyard. Ling, will remember that no livestock is allowed in." Chapter 144. Ziling's bone structure was actually not bad, it was just that this leg was crippled. Yi Qing Luo had asked Old Man Song, with the help of the Cauldron Dragon, it should not be a problem to repair Ziling's leg. At that time, she could let Ziling cultivate together. "Miss." Ziling was so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. She didn't expect that young miss would still keep her crippled leg in mind until now. By the time Yi Qing Luo and Yi Fengyu arrived at the entrance of 3 Springs sect, another 30 minutes had passed. "Sin." Yi Tianquang immediately stopped and scolded in a low voice, "Yi Qing Luo, what are you doing?" Yi Qing Luo shook the steamed bun in her hand and smiled innocently. "Women must dress up before going out." "Dress up?" Everyone stared at Yi Qing Luo in unison. This exquisite and sweet face didn't even have any makeup on. Dress up? She was lying through her teeth. Yi Tianquang gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. "Old madam has been waiting at the entrance to send you and you off. Go and apologize yourself." Old madam was supported by Madam Yuchi, leaning on her walking stick. Her face was gloomy and extremely gloomy. Ever since she came out of seclusion, she had been hearing about Yi Qing Luo every day. Old madam had personally seen this granddaughter whom she had regarded as trash since childhood, now had great ability and shrewdness. If not for Yi Tianquang needed this daughter to be the future matriarch, she really wanted to see how arrogant this Yi Qing Luo was. "So old madam wanted to send me and little you, why didn't you tell me earlier? if I knew old madam would come, I would have come earlier. Yi Qing Luo looked at old madam with a smile. Old madam's eyebrows twitched slightly, her fingers holding the walking stick tightened. Yi Qing Luo's words had another meaning. Others couldn't understand it, but old madam heard it clearly. She and Yi Tianquang deliberately didn't mention the registration fee, just to force Yi Qing Luo to take the initiative to ask them. They didn't believe that Yi Qing Luo could take out 200 gold coins. Yi Qing Luo's words indicated that old madam hadn't looked for her for the past few days and she was very clear on what she was planning. All right, it's the first day to report to the academy. Don't be late. The elder master took a deep breath and his sinister eyes narrowed into a line. Yi Qing Luo's brows raised slightly as she curiously swept a glance at old grand madam and then looked at Yi Tianquang. Both of their faces were terrifyingly gloomy, but neither of them made things difficult for her for being late. Strange, so strange. Ah. Big sister, that is. Suddenly, Yi Fengyu, who was carrying his luggage and walking in front, cried out in alarm. He pointed at the door and shouted, "Big sister, quickly come and see." When Yi Qing Luo walked out of the residence and followed Yi Fengyu's line of sight, the doubt in her heart was answered. At the entrance of the Three Springs sect, a giant white nine-tailed fox stood proudly with its neck raised high. It was still dragging the luxurious and exquisite carriage behind it. On the back of the nine-tailed fox, a beautiful figure was lying lazily, her purple robes fluttering in the wind. Even if he didn't make a sound, even if he was lying on the nine-tailed fox with his eyes closed, his whole body was still exuding a disdainful and domineering aura. No one dared to look directly at him. As long as one stood within 100 miles of this person, everyone surrendered under his aura, no one was dissatisfied. As if he heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, the man lying on his side suddenly opened his eyes. His inky black eyes were dotted with a diamond-like luster as he stared deeply at Yi Qing Luo. He stretched out his hand towards Yi Qing Luo, his slender fingers were almost transparent white under the sunlight. Chapter 145. Such a simple sentence made a certain part of Yi Qing Luo's heart seem to have been struck by something. Her heart, uncontrollably, beat fiercely. Looking not far away, the purple-robed man standing against the wind, he stretched out his hand with a smile on the corner of his mouth, it looked so warm. Her legs, uncontrollably moved towards the direction of the nine-tailed fox. Between her brows, there was a touch of warmth. This man. Why was he able to do things that tugged at her heartstrings every time? A few days ago, he asked the nine-tailed fox to send her back to the mansion, was to lend her his prestige to build momentum. With the escort of the overlord, how could the Yi family be restrained and dare not easily make things difficult for Yi Qing Luo? But this time, he actually came to pick her up personally. So ostentatious, so sensational. All he did was to build up momentum for her, to create a force that belonged solely to her. Even if the Heavenly Academy adhered to the principle that no matter what identity the person who entered the Heavenly Academy, they would be treated as ordinary people. But these words also differed from person to person. Otherwise, it would not happen that Yi Qingling was the daughter of the Yi family, so they neglected to check her weapon. Otherwise, the masters of the academy would not be afraid of old man Guiyu. No matter where, no matter how beautiful the words were, people would always be divided into different classes. Yi Qing Luo was personally picked up by the overlord to register in the Heavenly Academy. At this time, those masters who dared to deliberately make things difficult for Yi Qing Luo? Just like now, after old Grand Madam saw Dmo Xian, all the high and mighty stance she had put up, was instantly killed without leaving any dregs. When she saw Yi Qing Luo walking towards Dmo Xian, old Grand Madam suddenly thought of something, her face darkened and quickly pushed Madame Yuqi. At the same time, she hurriedly shouted to Yi Qing Luo, "Seventh, wait, Grandma forgot to give you something." This voice made Yi Qing Luo, who had lost her soul in a trance, suddenly stopped her footsteps. Her slender eyelashes fluttered slightly, her charming eyes regained their clarity. After realizing her own thoughts just now, Yi Qing Luo had an impulse to dig a hole and bury herself in it. Damn! Just now she was actually smitten with Dmo Xian. She actually had feelings for Dmo Xian. This was absolutely Dmo Xian's curse. The entire world had become a fantasy, alright? Number 7. Seeing Yiqing Luo stopping in her tracks but not responding for a long time, old Grand Madam couldn't help but called out again. Yiqing Luo turned back and looked over. Old Grand Madam forced a stiff smile and waved to her. She took a brocade bag from Madame Yuchi's hand. Number 7, you have to pay 200 gold coins before entering the Heavenly Academy. This is the registration fee that Grandma prepared for you. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her pink lips curled into a ridiculing arc. Registration fee? That's right, 7th young lady. Ancestor was worried that you would forget, so he ordered me to prepare this bag of gold coins for you. Madame Yuchi nodded repeatedly. Worried that Yiqing Luo would misunderstand, she explained further, just now I was thinking about your eldest sister and mistakenly passed the gold coin to you. Please calm down 7th Mississippi. His words were sincere and sincere. That gentle and virtuous look, it was no wonder she was Yiqing Qian's mother and daughter. Yiqing Luo sneered, her eyes were enchanting. Xiao Yu, take out the money bag. Yi Fengyu was slightly stunned, took out the brocade bag from his arms and asked blankly, what's wrong? Return the 200 gold coins to old Grand Madam. Yiqing Luo's smile gradually turned cold as she squinted at Yi Fengyu. Yi Fengyu continued to be at a loss, but he still handed the brocade bag back to Madame Yuchi unconditionally. Madame Yuchi looked at old Grand Madam for help. Chapter 146. Old 7th. Old Grand Madam frowned but suppressed her anger due to Dmo Xian's presence. Yi Tianquang, whose legs were already numb, couldn't hide his dark expression. Yiqing Luo, don't be capricious. The registration fee for the Heavenly Academy is 200 gold coins. Don't tell me you want to follow you into the academy? Yiqing Luo chuckled, her sweet voice revealed a bit of enchanting. Entering the Heavenly Academy is Yu's own effort, it has nothing to do with the Yi family. She spread out the feather fan in her hand and suddenly turned into a fluttering butterfly, quickly flying towards Yi Fengyu. There was a ding sound. The fan hit the money bag and coincidentally swept the money bag to Madame Yuchi. Yiqing Luo stretched out her 5 fingers, the feather fan rotated and fell right into her hand. Let's go. After leaving this sentence, Yiqing Luo walked away incomparably suave. A red dress fluttered like a blooming coquettish rose. Enchanting and flirtatious, but with a sharp sting. Can only be seen from afar, not blasphemous. Yi Fengyu looked at the empty palm in a daze and suddenly understood why his sister didn't ask him to return the gold coins to old Grand Madam last night. Sister was an alchemist, naturally she didn't lack those few hundred gold coins. With her character, she would definitely ask him to return the gold coins to old Grand Madam. The reason why she didn't mention it last night was to return the coins to the Yi family in front of so many people today. If he used the Yi family's gold coins, it would be hard for him to refuse all the requests of the Yi family in the Heavenly Academy. His sister had already made all the plans for him. Yi Fengyu's eyes welled up and immediately caught up with his sister's footsteps. Watching the siblings board the 9-tailed fox's carriage, the Yi family's faces were as black as charcoal. Being humiliated by Yiqing Luo in public, the Yi family had lost all their face this time. In mid-air, the 9-tailed fox dragged the carriage towards the Heavenly Academy. Yi Fengyu consciously sat outside the carriage, although he was full of curiosity about Dmo Xian, but it was better not to disturb the current situation. Inside the carriage, a purple and a red figure entangled with each other. The minute Yiqing Luo boarded the carriage, she was forcefully pulled into Dmo Xian's arms without any room for rejection. The man's arm tightened around her waist. A head of long black hair, scattered over Yiqing Luo's body, intertwining with her hair. Dmo Xian, how much longer are you going to hug? Yiqing Luo's cheeks were flushed red, her strength wasn't as great as Dmo Xian's, so there was no way she could struggle free. If you have something to say, can't you just say it nicely? Did he have to hug her like this? How could he have a pleasant chat? The man's other hand, his slender fingers running along her hair, gently stroking it. His warm lips pressed against the woman's hair. Above her head, the man's mellow voice came, "Ah Luo, I miss you." 6 words. Yiqing Luo's heart, which was originally beating normally, suddenly sped up. As if triggered by something, the temperature of her cheeks continued to rise. She had heard many sweet nothings. In his previous life, there were countless men who wanted to chase after her, hoping to get a chance to enter the hidden family. There wasn't a man who could move her heart. And in the other world, Ling Fenghua also said a lot of sweet nothings in order to win her back. But none of them could make her blush like Dmo Xian's few simple words, making her heart beat faster. She had to admit that Yan Zheng had long legs. No matter where, in any matter, he had the absolute advantage. Chapter 147. A day apart feels like 3 autumns. I feel like decades have passed since I last saw you. I miss you so much. Dmo Xian rested his head on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. He seemed to like this position very much. Slightly tilting his head, his warm thin lips would always caress Yiqing Luo's skin from time to time. His hot breath sprayed on her neck. Yiqing Luo moved her shoulders unnaturally, trying to avoid him. "Don't move, let me hug you." The man's deep voice sounded in her ear. Yiqing Luo caught a glimpse of his side profile. His front profile was peerless and evildoer. But this side profile, the contours were deep, the corners of his eyes were slightly raised, adding a quiet gentleness. Without the usual flamboyant charm, there was a bit more calmness, a beauty that made one's heart beat faster. For no reason, she was mesmerized by him. Her struggling delicate body also unconsciously softened. She pursed her pink lips, trying to hide the blush on her cheeks. Why are you here at the Three Springs sect? As a master, on such an important day, how can you not show up and cheer for your disciple?" Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes were slightly tilted, his black pupils were suffused with a bewitching and dazzling luster. Yiqing Luo was embarrassed, this joke was about to be spoiled. Can't they have a pleasant chat? Speaking of which. Ah Luo, you haven't called me master yet. Dmo Xian's slender fingers suddenly pinched her chin, his fingertip brushed across her pink lips as he smiled magnificently. "Let me hear it." Yiqing Luo flew into a rage. "I have never personally said that you are my master. Those masters in the academy misunderstood. What has it got to do with me?" A chuckle overflowed from the man's lips. His chest rose up and down because of the laughter. That laughter, clear and melodious, gradually became louder. The man's fingers had slid from Yiqing Luo's chin to the back of her head. His palm exerted a little force and she was buckled into his arms. His slender fingers inserted into Yiqing Luo's hair. Ah Luo seems to like to divert the trouble. Dmo Xian lowered his head slightly, his face was a little closer to Yiqing Luo's. Yiqing Luo shrank back a little, unable to adapt to Dmo Xian's approach. However, the man's thin lips were slightly raised, his devilish charming black eyes deeply locked onto Yiqing Luo. Their eyes met, and their faces came closer and closer. Coincidentally, Yi Fengyu's excited voice came from outside the door. "Sister, we've arrived at the Heavenly Academy." This voice made Yiqing Luo, who was already intoxicated by Dmo Xian's sandalwood fragrance, immediately regain her senses. When she saw that the man's enlarged face was still a little bit away from her, she suddenly pushed the man's chest with both hands. "We're here. I'm leaving first." Yiqing Luo escaped from the carriage and jumped off the carriage. The red figure instantly disappeared into the sea of people. Yi Fengyu carried 2 luggage on his back and chased after her. Looking at the direction where his sister disappeared, he was at a loss. Hey, sister, you haven't paid me the registration fee. What should I do if you just leave like this?" A brocade pouch fell on Yi Fengyu's luggage with a thud. Behind him, the man's unique magnetic voice sounded leisurely. "There are 500 gold coins here, enough for your expenses until graduation." Yi Fengyu turned around in a daze, looking at the raised edge of the carriage. He nervously swallowed his saliva. That Overlord, sister has money, I don't. Chapter 148. At the Overlord, you took it from you? Wasn't it the money earned from alchemy? Using the Overlord's money to pay for the registration fee, including all expenses? Who was the Overlord? The legend of the Nirvana realm. His stuff was also a legend. It was said that even a piece of leaf in the backyard of the Imperial Palace could be auctioned for dozens of gold coins. He just farted and everyone was scrambling to say that it smelled good. He actually gave him money. Yi Fengyu's little heart thumped non-stop. This little guy has no time to refine the elixirs sold to the merchants these days. Dmo Xian curled his lips into a faint smile. Based on his understanding of Yi Qing Luo, the last swore that she had money. It must be from the profound phoenix ring. Yi Fengyu stood stiffly on the spot. Stunned. Completely stunned. He clutched the money bag in a daze and gave a deep bow to the carriage. Thank you, future brother-in-law. Leaving this sentence, Yi Fengyu hurriedly bowed and ran away. Dmo Xian was stunned for a moment. The words, future brother-in-law, floated in his mind. His eyebrows overflowed with a warm smile. Brother-in-law, this title was not bad at all. With a joyful smile on his face, Dmo Xian lazily lay down in the carriage and lifted his leg to give the nine-tailed foxes but a kick. Little Nine, who asked you to run so fast? Can't you be tactful and give me some time to spend with Luo? The nine-tailed fox's tail moved and her black eyes blinked in grievance. Her heart almost collapsed. Damn it. It had already flown 8 to 10 laps around the Three Springs city, okay? If it continued to fly, the future mistress would miss the registration time, okay? At the entrance of the Heavenly Academy, people came and went. At a glance, it was a dense mass of people. There were students who came to register, elders who sent their children, and people who came to watch. By the time Yi Qing Luo stopped, she was already in the crowd. Where was the figure of Yi Fengyu and Dmo Xian? The money had not been given to little Yu. How was he going to register? Yi Qing Luo patted her face. Her heart was extremely annoyed. How could she always be led by the nose by Dmo Xian? He was a hooligan, so she should be even more of a hooligan than him. Yi Qing Luo, who had never known how to write the word shy, fled for the first time in her life. Yi Qing Luo suddenly felt that she had no face to see Dmo Xian again. The most important thing now was to find Yi Fengyu. He couldn't miss the registration time. Yi Qing Luo couldn't sense his presence at all due to the surging crowd. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo's peripheral vision seemed to catch a glimpse of a white figure, disappearing in a flash. She frowned. Just now, was that a nine-tailed fox? Nine-tailed fox. As long as she followed Nine-tailed fox, Yi Fengyu should still be waiting for her there. Yi Qing Luo's feet moved as she immediately sprinted towards the place where the white figure had appeared earlier. She stopped at the back door of the Heavenly Academy. How could there be a nine-tailed fox in this empty and narrow street? Not even a strand of hair could be seen. Could it be an illusion? This back door was quite strange. The front door was filled with people, but the back door was completely silent, giving off a strange atmosphere. Yi Qing Luo frowned and was about to leave when she suddenly heard a soft rebuke. Get your hand off me. Stay away from me. The voice came from the corner of the street. Wasn't the Heavenly Academy known for its rigorous learning style? How could there be someone so bold at the back door of the academy? Take your hand off me. Ah. Chapter 149. That woman's long green robe was torn into a mess. Her long black hair covered her face, and her hands kept flailing about as she angrily shouted, You dare to touch me? I'll kill you. But her warning and struggle were useless. Following that, a man pounced on the woman. The woman screamed even more miserably. While struggling, she found Yi Qing Luo standing by the side as if she saw her savior. Miss, save me, save me." The man tore the woman's clothes and turned his head to look at Yi Qing Luo when he heard the cry for help. That was a protruding mouth and monkey cheeks as he spat viciously. "Little girl, get lost." The woman cried for help immediately. Yi Qing Luo frowned as a meaningful smile appeared on her face. Not knowing why, she felt something was wrong. She squinted her eyes and suddenly turned around, as if she didn't see them, and was ready to leave. Behind her, a violent roar came from the man. "Slut!" What followed was the woman's painful cry, "Ah!" The woman took advantage of the time when the man and Yi Qing Luo were talking and struggled to escape from the man's side. The man took out a dagger and stabbed it into the woman's leg. That stab made the woman's calf bloody and the woman's face turned pale in pain as she kept screaming. The man pushed the woman to the ground rudely and pressed on top of her again. The woman screamed and begged Yi Qing Luo to save her. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she stopped in her tracks and turned her head. The moment she turned around, she felt a chill on her back. From the corner of her eyes, she caught a glimpse of a dazzling long knife, slashing towards her. Her strong perception made Yi Qing Luo instinctively display her footwork. Clang clang, the long knife slashed empty air and made a swishing sound in midair. The person who sneak attacked her from behind was dressed in black with a veil over his face, holding a long knife in his hand. "Killer? You're smart." That killer sneered as he pointed the long knife at Yi Qing Luo. "Hand over the things on you and perhaps I can let you live for a few more days." Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched. What the hell, dressed up like this in broad daylight? Was he afraid that others wouldn't know he was a killer? Things? In this day and age, there were actually people robbing her? When the killer saw that Yi Qing Luo had no reaction, he leapt into the air and the long knife came piercing towards her face. The saber wind exuded an extremely cold air. Yi Qing Luo tiptoed lightly and took a step back. She narrowed her eyes and fixed her sight on the killer's chest. There was a black light hovering around the assassin's heart. The mystic profound realm should be around mystic profound 3rd grade. A mystic profound realm assassin, the other party really thought highly of her. Yi Qing Luo snorted lightly, although the opponent's profound grade was above her, but in terms of overall strength, she might not necessarily lose. "If you want to take something from this young matriarch, you have to use something in exchange." Yi Qing Luo opened her feather fan and swept it across her pink lips, revealing an enchanting smile. In the next moment, those slightly narrowed eyes suddenly opened. Her pink lips parted slightly, and her voice was sweet as she spat out a few words. "With your life." Her words had just ended when Yi Qing Luo's figure swayed. Only a red blur could be seen in the air. Ugh, that killer didn't even have time to put up a defensive posture and was sent flying. Yi Qing Luo slowly retracted her leg, waved her feather fan lightly and smiled incomparably enchanting. "Do you still want it?" Chapter 150. He sneered. Yi Qing Luo's lips also curled into a smile. The corners of her eyes rose slightly, outlining a demonic arc. Her fiery pink lips were extremely enchanting. This smile was reflected in the killer's eyes, making him feel as though he was being targeted by the devil from hell. The feather fan on Yi Qing Luo's fingertips flew into the air in a flash. The feather fan was like a fire dragon, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it whizzed towards Yi Qing Luo's back. The flame was enchanting, colliding with something. Then she heard the sound of a heavy object falling behind her. "Ah, woo!" Following that, 2 screams were heard at the same time. Yi Qing Luo tipped her toes and leaped sideways, landing steadily 5 steps away from the killer. "So many flaws, still trying to trick me?" Yi Qing Luo sneered as she spread out her hands. The feather fan made a turn and fell back into her palm. The place where Yi Qing Luo was standing was in a triangular terrain. On the left was the killer who fell on the ground, clutching his chest as he panted heavily. On the right was the man and woman who were tugging at each other, also lying on the ground. "How did you know we are together?" That woman's face, there was no longer any trace of pain from being taken advantage of, as she asked with a cold face. "Because he..." Yi Qing Luo pointed at the man lying on the ground, Her eyes squinted as she gave a charming smile. As a man who was releasing his beast bath, after seeing this young matriarch, he actually berated this young matriarch to leave, which is illogical. That man and woman's brows twitched. Wasn't this lady overly confident of her own looks? Although the monkey-like man wanted to reply in this way, but when he saw the smiling face, charming eyes of the woman, he swallowed his words. What she said seemed to make sense. He couldn't refute. Using such a method to attract my attention, then sneak an attack from behind? Yi Qing Luo's smile deepened. Unfortunately, this young matriarch has never been a good person. Yi Qing Luo spread out her fingers. A burst of profound qi condensed on the feather fan. Immediately the feather fan drew out a few small knives which were emitting flames, like scattered flowers in the rain, directly towards the three men. The three people on the ground looked at each other. Simultaneously, they slammed their palms on the ground and soared into the sky. He swiftly avoided the fire blade and attacked Yi Qing Luo at the same time. The moves and movements of the three were almost exactly the same, like mirrors facing each other, repeating the same movements. Profound qi burst forth from the three of them with irresistible force. Indeed, not an ordinary killer. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly. If he could use such a method to attract her attention, he would naturally use a weak method to lower her vigilance. These tricks, Yi Qing Luo had long been tired of playing them in her past life. Since you've been discovered, don't blame us for giving you a painful death. The expressions of the three assassins turned cold. They leaped up at the same time, and fiercely struck out with their palms. Rumble. The sound of the earth quaking and the mountains shaking caused the ground to crack. The majestic and terrifying profound qi was like a mountain torrent, burying Yi Qing Luo in it. A mere low-grade yellow Xian practitioner dares to act impudently in front of us. The assassin snorted disdainfully. The number of people in the world who could escape from the combined attack of the three of them could be counted on one hand. There's nothing left of her, go and find the ring on her finger. The assassin looked at the woman. The woman revealed some displeasure. She's already exploded into pieces, you want me to find a ring? His lordship instructed, we must bring that ring back. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.